A fifth night of protests in Los Angeles. At least 200 people arrested today before a curfew went into effect tonight. That curfew is now in place for a specific part of downtown LA. This comes after days of demonstrations, violence, and vandalism. Thank you for joining us here at 10. I'm Andrea Flores.
And I'm Edie Lambert. LA Mayor Karen Bass called for that emergency curfew after looking at the damage assessments from last night's protests.
Curfew has been in consideration for several days, but clearly after the violence that took place last night, 23 businesses looted, and just the extensive, widespread nature of the vandalism, we reached a tipping point and declared a state of emergency and called for the curfew.
That curfew started at 8 tonight. It is now in effect until 6 tomorrow morning and only covers a small section of the city in the downtown area. The area is bordered by Interstate 5, Interstate 10, and Highways 101 and 110, and covers neighborhoods like Chinatown and the Fashion District. There are exemptions for people who live within that designated area, people who are homeless, credentialed media, and public safety and emergency personnel. Governor Gavin Newsom also delivering a public address tonight. The governor taking aim at President Donald Trump for his response to those protests in Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom accused the president of escalating the violence by calling up the California National Guard and deploying active duty Marines. And he warned this is bigger than what's happening in one city. He called the military intervention the start of an assault on democracy.
This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose.
The White House Deputy Press Secretary responded to the governor's speech, posting on social media, quote, Newsom Playbook 101, blaming his own incompetence on President Trump, lame and predictable.
And that's just the latest of the ongoing war of words between local and state officials and the White House. President Trump saying he is considering invoking the Insurrection Act. It's one of the most extreme emergency powers available to a U.S. president. It authorizes the president to deploy military forces inside the U.S. to suppress rebellion or domestic violence or to enforce the law in certain situations. The Pentagon says deploying Marines and soldiers to Los Angeles will cost $134 million. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the deployment in Los Angeles could last for at least 60 days. Here's what LA Mayor Karen Bass told reporters when asked about that deployment.
This is just absolutely unnecessary. People have asked me, what are the Marines going to do when they get here? That's a good question. I have no idea. The National Guard that are here now have one assignment, and that is to protect one building, which is the federal building downtown. The second building, which is the federal building on Westwood Boulevard. And as far as I know, nothing has happened in Westwood at all. So this was not needed.
Bass says they have not had proper communication with the White House so far. So take a look at this video captured earlier today. Marines deployed to Los Angeles were seen staging at Seal Beach. We could see rows of tents there. In another shot, the Marines seem to be training or learning how to take people into custody. Seal Beach is home to a naval weapons station. It's unclear if these Marines will be sent to downtown LA.
A federal judge delayed a decision on California's request to block the president's deployment of Marines and National Guard troops. The judge set a hearing for Thursday afternoon so both sides can present their arguments. Lawyers for the state of California want to prevent the troops from accompanying federal agents on immigration raids, which was a duty they did carry out today. The request accuses President Trump of using federal troops and the state National Guard to carry out immigration enforcement. But in the lawsuit, the attorneys said they are not seeking to block the National Guard from protecting federal buildings. This legal filing today was part of the state's lawsuit against President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And we're getting more context about the pictures of California National Guard troops that have been circulating on social media, showing them sleeping on the floor. In these photos obtained by our partners at the San Francisco Chronicle, you can see troops crowded together, resting on the floor there. In a social media post on X, Governor Newsom reposted the pictures with a comment to President Trump saying in part, quote, "You sent your troops here without fuel, food, water, or a place to sleep. Tonight, President Trump's border czar responded in an interview with NBC's Tom Yamas.
President Trump's saving his city. President Trump's doing what he should have done. Gavin Newsom could have responded right away. And everybody wants to put the blame on President Trump and the National Guard. You know the blame starts? It starts with the Biden administration with over 10 million illegal aliens across this border. We're out there trying to respond to the chaos he created.
Now, we wanted more information about whether this was normal for troops to sleep on the floor like this when they're deployed. So we spoke to a member of the California National Guard who told us scenes like this are not entirely uncommon. There's often some waiting time between orders, and the troops try to get in some rest when they can. A Pentagon official estimated the cost of deploying National Guard troops and U.S. Marines to Los Angeles will be $134 million.
And we're getting more reaction from Republican lawmakers. Congressman Tom McClintock saying, quote, people can see that the LA riots are anything but peaceful and the Democrats will not oppose them. If Dems prevail, our families will be at the mercy of these violent mobs while criminal illegals prey on us all. I'm proud to join California Republicans in standing by the president.
And the California GOP posted, what we saw in Los Angeles was not a peaceful protest. It was organized crime. Criminals attacked officers, police horses, and property with commercial-grade fireworks, rocks, hammers, and other weapons. We will continue to post the latest on the legal battles, the ICE raids, and the protests on KCRA.com and our KCRA3 app.